Hello, Lizzy here. Today I'm going to show you how to make the March Hare, and I think you'll agree she looks absolutely glorious in her flowery fabrics and fantastic batik background. Stumbled across this fabric and I thought this is perfect for our March Hare. Obviously you can source the fabrics that you love, but it's really an easy project. It's all applique, very simple stitching. It's got an envelope back on the back so you can see what that looks like. I've added a bit of interest with a placket going down the back as well, so you can keep that on, you can take it off, you can decide what you're going to do. And if you want to put a zip in there, of course you can do whatever you choose. Now I have put wadding on the back of the whole of the front as a kind of a stabilizer so I kind of stitch through the applique pieces. It gives it a slight bit of puffiness and a little bit of dimension. So you could, if you wanted to, take this a lot further and do more quilting around the hair. And also I thought maybe you could do some stitching here with ferns and fronds and flowers and things like that. I've kept it basic because you can see then that it's not too complicated at first glance, and it's doable. That's what it's all about. It's making a doable project that you'll have a go at. Now I've used free motion, but actually I would say you could use your regular foot with this and a regular straight stitch. You're only going to be pivoting your needle and turning your fabric to get round some of the curves, but a lot of these are kind of like a straight run, so it's only when you get to more sort of pointed areas or more curved areas, maybe the eye, etc., that you might want to do a little bit of free motion or do some hand stitching. All of this could be done by hand. I mean, it will look absolutely fantastic. It's a pattern that I designed about 4 years ago, and I made it with tweed, and it's around here somewhere. I'll see if I can find it later and I'll show you the original design, which was in tweed. It was really nice, but to make it a more affordable, let's do it in our quilting cottons, our scraps, and create this lovely project. This is what the front of the pattern looks like, so it's identical. And that was taken in my garden just to get some little flowers just to complement the design. So that's what the pattern front will look like. So that's our March Hare, and I'm going to put our March Hare at the back here so we can admire it while we're stitching along. There's actually very little new here. We've done lots of applique before, but I will go over some of those steps for you just to make sure you're happy with all of this. Now what you do get is a sort of coloured copy, if I can pick it up, of what the hair looks like with all the pieces. I'll put it on my overhead so you can have a little closer look at it. And what you can see there is all of these are numbered. Now, we'll talk as we go through how we can stitch this, the different ways you can stitch it. This is obviously not actual size, so you won't need to put this under your applique mat to follow. It's a guide of what you're aiming for. You can make his ears a little bit sort of more this way, and you can put them up a little bit more that way. So you've got a little bit of license as to how you create the design, but there are all the bits for you, and all of the pattern pieces are here in the pattern. They're all numbered. I originally was going to name them like back of body, front of body, and I thought, no, what's the point? Just numbering them is fine, and then you can identify which piece is which, because some of them look quite similar. You know, the big ears here look quite similar, the inner ears look quite similar, so I think, you know, it's a little bit easier doing it that way anyway. So to start off with, I'm just going to do one little piece for you so you understand just the principles. I'm not going to go through all the cutting and stitching, all the cutting of the pieces and the tracing. That would be so boring. So you need some little pieces of scrap fabric. You need some heat and bond, bonder web, steamer seam, whatever your fusible webbing is, that's what you need. And you're going to trace off one of the pattern pieces. So let's just choose one piece. It really matters not. Just make sure your fabric covers it fine. and you're literally going to draw around your piece. Now you can see, as well as I can, that you can see through that that fabric. Let's just find a pen. I couldn't find a pencil, so use a pen. Hopefully it works. There we are. Yeah, so you can see right through that heat and bond. Now actually I've got a massive roll of heat and bond ultra hold, which is so totally over the top, and I need to use it. So even with a thick layer of glue, you can still see the pattern pieces. Now all I want you to do, and it doesn't matter if you're using a pen like this or a pencil, don't use a heat erasable, and you're just sketching around, tracing these shapes. Now I always do this in little movements like this. You can see what I'm doing, and that allows me to stay on the line and it allows me to follow the curve identically. If you try to do this freehand in one go, I'm not going to guarantee you're going to go off the line, but you're more likely to go off the line. So do this in little kind of brush strokes in a way, and just follow your line all the way around until you're comfortable with your design. So if you've followed this perfectly, fantastic. If you just need to go over it again, then do it again. And you're only making a tracing, so it's not hugely important that it's absolutely identical. It wants to be pretty much as you see it there, and by all means number it. So this is number 1, so you can number it if you think that's going to help you to put the pieces together. So then what you're going to do, the next stage, is to cut out your tracing piece. So let's pop my pen out of the way and use paper scissors. I've got my little scissors there ready, but little paper scissors are fine, and you're literally going to cut, well, I always do about 1/4 inch if you want a measurement, but 1/8 of an inch is fine. What you don't want to do is cut on the line, because then you've got to cut it out again when it's on the fabric. So all you're going to do is cut it roughly like that, and I'll get my iron on ready to go. And what that allows you to do is not use up so much of your fabric, so it can go on there. Obviously it's going to go on the wrong side, but you've got other places that you can use. Now if you'd covered this whole piece in a fusible webbing, it could well be wasted. It might be something that you'll never use again for applique. Obviously it might well be, and you could build up a stash of bits of fabric that do have your fusible web on. But if you want to, this is perhaps the most economical way of cutting your pieces of fabric out. So let's bring in the mat. So again, we want it on the wrong side, so the gluey side, you can see if I flash it, it's shiny. The gluey side goes on the wrong side of your fabric like that, and obviously you can, depending what this is, this could be a directional fabric, and you might want the direction of your piece here to go exactly across or exactly up, so do think about placement. But this is a real all over sort of design. It doesn't matter where you pop your piece, and if you want to put it on kind of like the bias like that, then do that. It's stable because you're putting a layer of glue on it. So all you're going to do is apply your iron like this. Now another way of doing this is to cut a piece of your fusible web, A4 size or letter size, wherever you are in the world, and actually pop that through your printer. It's much better if your printer goes like that rather than like that. Okay, you know your printer. So that's a straightforward feed. That's easier than a feed that goes up and around the rollers and round. I speak from experience, but you can print these out directly onto your fusible webbing. They're positioned on the pattern pieces fairly close together, so you're not going to waste too much of your fusible webbing, to be perfectly honest. So don't worry about wastage, you should be fine. So now that's cooled down, we're ready to cut that out. So literally you're now going to cut on the line. So whatever's comfortable for you, whether you big scissors, little scissors, if you want to use your paper scissors, you do that. Obviously you're cutting through paper because of the backing on the Bonder Web Heat and Bond. But you decide. It's not for me to tell you what to do with your scissors. I'm happy to just use my sewing scissors. And of course you're going through a layer of glue as well. But these things are made for sewing, so I think, you know what, it's friendly, so I'm happy with that. So that we can use that for crumb quilting and all sorts of patchwork pieces. I'm going to pop that to one side. So pretty, I don't want to waste it. So there's our pattern piece there. So there, if I show you to the front, that's the back with the paper still on. There's the front, and we can see the right side of the fabric there. And all you're going to do is peel the paper off, and you're going to then start thinking about applying it to make your design up. So if we start thinking about that, let's pop that to one side because we don't need that bit. I've got all my pieces cut out ready. I'm going to slide this in and pop it on the overhead so you can see. He looks a bit weird, doesn't he? So I've made up, I'll leave those pieces there for the time being, but I've made his ears up. Can you see? Oh, it's so pretty. I've put some really bonny flowery fabric in the centre of his ears, or her ears, and yeah, it just looks really jolly and happy. Now you could, if you wanted to, you could get your main piece of fabric. Let's get that in. Let's just push that out the way for a second. So this is our main piece of fabric. And you could, if you wanted to, place your pieces directly onto this. So if I bring my pieces in, let's just tip them off the mat. They stick to the mat. This is a proper applique mat, and the pieces, once you've taken the paper off, they kind of stick. It's really nice because it keeps things really safe. So let's move it. This is a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. It's nothing more than that. And all you've got to do is follow the pattern to decide where all your bits go. Okay, so we start off with something that looks like that. If we bring in our pattern piece, we can start to see how these pieces are going to fit together. So when we look at the shape of this one, this is number one, it's this part here, and that's just going to sit nicely like that. Now you could, if you wanted to, press that down when you feel that's in the right position, and stitch that one piece down and then add your pieces. But what I suggest you do is make it up first of all on your fabric to see if it's going to fit. I'm just going to move that up a little bit. So this is about, I suppose it's about 2 inches up from the bottom. And you could, like I said, you could do one piece at a time, or you can do what I'm going to do and make it all in one piece. So I know that this piece goes here. If we keep looking at the design, this is number 3. So this is number 4 here, which is this piece. It always looks a bit funny when you're doing this. So I would place it and see how you feel about it. And a lot of this is when you start adding all the bits, whether you think they fit properly. So number 5 is the actual sort of cheek area. And if you look at the pattern, it's got that little dip there. So if I look at my pattern piece, there's my little dip just there. So I'm going to pop it down exactly where the pattern says, like that. And you might sort of look at it and think, oh, that should go there, that should go there, and move it around. Okay, move it around till you're absolutely happy with it. There's no rule as to what the overhang of your fabric should be. Okay, so you might have a generous sort of 1/4 inch here, you might have an 1/8 of an inch overhang here, and even tinier 1/16 of an inch overlap there. This is all down to how you think it looks when you start putting it together. So I know his little nose goes there, or her little nose, so we can pop that there. Now the eyes and the nose are not numbered because I think they're pretty obvious. So I've got my eye. Just make sure you put sticky side down And I would say tilt it slightly upwards because it looks cuter. And put the eye in like that. So he looks quite cute already, doesn't he? Even though he looks bald. If you do it this way, he might look a little cross. Do you see? He might change. I mean, we're using white on white, which is not ideal. But by the time you've stitched it, it'll stand out better. And then you're putting your ears on. Now, this one is the back one, and it sort of fits like that. And you can see, if I bring this in, can you see it's going over my cushion? So if I was to have started with these pieces, stuck them on and stitched them, then I really would have come unstuck here. So all of this needs to shift over a little bit. And then this one goes over the top like that. There we go. So it's dead easy, but obviously we need to shove it over a bit. So of course, now you can, let's just say that is exactly where you want it, and you want to stitch this piece, then this piece, and so on and so forth. Of course you can do it that way, but it's far easier if you want to have it, make it a little bit quicker or more accurate perhaps with the placement. I suggest you actually make him up on your applique mat and then stick him down as like one piece. He becomes a kind of like I always think of it as like a badge. You're making one piece that you're going to apply rather than lots of little pieces. Now, that doesn't always work with things, but in this case it does. So let's just take all our pieces up. Get hold, don't lose the nose. I nearly did earlier today. And bring in our applique mat. So we'll look on the overhead again. So what I've got here, and I do apologise for the flashing of the light, but I need the light to be able to see. So I've got my protective mat underneath for my desk, so it doesn't interfere with my desk. I've got my applique mat on top. I could actually just prop it up, which I will do. Let me just do that. I've got a lovely little bag here that we can prop it up with. There we go. That's better. Just still getting into shot. Now, oftentimes you can pop your pattern underneath your mat. If this is the actual size, you can see through it and you can place your pieces accordingly. Well, this is not actual size. It's just your guide. It's your visual help. So let's start to make it up. So we're going to do exactly what we did before. And I'm going to pop her along just a little bit that way. I'm sorry if this is strobing. It might well do because we've got the checkerboard effect underneath. So I'm just going to match my pieces up. We want this line to be nice and straight. So if I bring that up a little bit, so that needs to be nice and straight because that's what's going to go on the cushion. And you'll notice if it's a little wonky. And then we're going to do exactly what we did before. So we're going to place our pieces down. Make sure they overlap. So we know that this is the order they go in. Like that. So I reckon that can come up a little bit more. So I'm not too bothered if they don't overlap. And you'll find that this sticks to your mat, so it's not going to easily move about. So it's sometimes a little awkward because you have to literally get something. I often have to use my little sort of stiletto to move things about because it will stick. So there's our face, our cheeks, if you like that. So that's slightly different to what we had it before, I can tell, because the amount of overlap of fabric. So I'm just going to move. So again, like I just said, you need something sharp or something that will grab your fabric to be able to move it. Obviously you can pick it up, but there we go. Let's just move him like that. I think I'm happy with that. We've then got our eye, put it on a little bit upward like that, nearly did down. We don't want him to be cross. With the eyeball, we might move that in a second, and then the nose. Just make sure that you're putting the sticky side down because it would be ever so easy at this stage to have the sticky side up. So I'm going to leave it there for a minute and then see how I feel about it. So I've already made my ears up because all I want to do is attach this part of the ear. I don't need to iron this bit. I'll do that when I put it on my fabric, and then just attach that like that. Okay, so what you're trying to do is cover up some of your pieces. So you want to cover up your face piece, you don't want a gap here, and you want that a nice smooth transition across his head. And this is exactly how that should look, where you've got a little bit of a gap and it comes just down past the face. And I think I'm happy with that, actually. I like the fact that he's looking kind of upwards. There we go. So you can adjust that to how you think your hair should be. I think he looks really cool, or she. So then all you're going to do is just pat that to melt the glue underneath. I might have to move my little bag there. So all you're doing is patting. Make sure you don't lift anything off as you bring your iron up. Just check. Let the heat go through the fabrics and melt the glue. Don't overdo it. There's no need to iron any of this or this. You just want to make sure that all your pieces where they meet are glued together. There, and if you want to, just give it a little bit of movement, but to be honest, it's not necessary. So we'll leave the iron to one side. Now ideally you're going to wait for this to cool, because you've melted the glue, it's going to stick slightly to here, but that's the idea of it. It lifts up easily, look. But ideally you're going to wait for it to cool. I don't have that luxury. So let's pop my applique mat out of the way, and I can bring my cushion in. Again, you still need a protective covering on your desk. So let's get the sky in the right place. So now what you're looking at is your whole cushion part. So if I zoom out a little bit so you can see a little bit better, so bear with, I might wriggle the camera a little bit. There we are. That's a little bit better for you. And obviously now you've got one whole piece. You've got one whole piece, so if you want to do it that way, fine. But at least you've got a visual on where exactly that's going to sit. You could find out exactly the halfway point of your hair, which is actually about here. So you could make sure that that sits in the middle of your cushion. So you might want to bring him right over. You could work out, I think it's about 1.5 inches, but you can work out what the distance is here to the distance is here. Make that the same. I think we're cool with that. That's a little bit further down than I would like. You don't want to put this here, because that's the underside of your cushion, and you'll never see him. He'll be too, or she will be too far down. So bring it up a bit, and just like I say, just keeping it, get a little visual on it. And there we are. I think I'm happy with that. When we look at it like this, I'm happy to see more of the sky up the top. I'm saying sky because that's what that fabric is saying to me. And now, because it's all one piece, it's much easier to apply that to your cushion. And again, because your piece is one piece, you can immediately move your iron as you normally would, because everything is glued down. So you don't need to pat. That's what I'm saying. So think about what technique you want to do, because you might want to do one piece at a time, which is kind of traditional, and build up your hair. But you can see how far over that you would have to place your body pieces. So I would say lay it out, pin the pieces down and move them out of the way as you stitch one piece. It's kind of like whatever you feel that is you. I'm happy to do this all in one piece like this. I'm really happy to do that. And if I change my thread, which I won't on this instance, I'm going to keep it as one coloured thread, then if you're changing your thread, then you've just got to make sure that you don't go beyond those points. So I'm pretty sure that that's actually glued down now, so we can let it cool a little bit now. If I show you the cushion the one I made, I want you to have a look that I've used a light pink thread here, I've used a darker pink here, I've used a more sort of medium coloured pink in there, and that makes the ears stand out quite well. I've used a white in the eye and a blue. I've also done a little bit of stitching in the eye there just to give it a little glint, as if you was catching the light of the moon. I haven't stitched my nose, but I could do, but I didn't think it was necessary. If I was going to wash this, I think I would stitch that down for sure, because that might come off in the wash. But that is now really fixed on there beautifully. So I've chosen different areas to put the different colours, and I think it works really well. And you can see you just get a little smile here from where the joins are, which I think is lovely. And because we've used flowery fabric, I think it really represents spring beautifully. So think about your colours. Don't worry if you haven't got any embroidery thread, you know, your proper sort of shiny metallic threads. Don't worry too much about that. If this is the first time you've done any sort of applique work, just use your regular Gutermann. See how you get on first. Don't commit to anything until you're absolutely happy with how it's going. So we're kind of finished with all our pattern pieces, and all we need to do now is some stitching. So I'm going to show you the majority of it. It depends how much I get carried away. And then we'll make up the cushion so you know at least how to finish the cushion off. So we'll bring in the machine. I want it fairly near me. I have got an old machine. This machine must be 30 years old at least. It's an absolute dream for applique and for free motion. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that you buy a new machine especially for applique, but it's something you might want to consider if that's going to be something important to you. So this does free motion like a dream, as I said. I don't need many tools with this. I've got my quilting gloves because it helps move the fabric. If you've got a larger table, brilliant, that really supports the fabric beautifully. If you don't have any of these things, please don't worry. If you're going to use just your regular stitching, you don't need anything special, really you don't. I don't have a mat to go on here because I don't feel I need to, but you could, if you wanted to, get a sort of slippy mat just to put underneath so your work slips around more easily. You could use some furniture polish and give it a really good polish, and that will do just the same sort of job. So what I've done is I've lowered my feed dogs. If you can't lower your feed dogs, put your stitch length on 0. It does exactly the same thing. And don't use a darning plate. There's absolutely no need. You might find it hinders you as well. So I would just say drop your feed dogs or put your stitch length on 0. I've got some embroidery thread or machine metallic thread sitting in my holder here. Because it's a cone, let me just lift that up so you can see. Let me see if I can get hold of it. Because it's a cone, I have it on a special carrier, if you like, so the thread is coming up from the cone. I much prefer that. Now that particular design there, that actual tool that I'm using, it's called a superior thread holder. And it'll take bobbins sideways, or spools of thread sideways and upright. And for me, this is exactly how I want it. I want the thread coming upright. And because they're cones, they won't fit on my regular thread holder, so I have to have one of these. I just find it better for me. You try this out to see if it suits you. It's a very personal thing, actually. So I'm using a sort of darkish pink. It was a case of picking one of the pinks out so I could demonstrate for you. And in my bobbin is a regular Gutermann thread in pink. Actually, it's a variegated pink, but you could use bobbin fill if you want to, but I still have noticed I can still see that come through because we're not doing like machine embroidery per se. We're doing free motion, slightly different. So you could try bobbin fill. My best advice to you is to wind a reel of a bobbin in the same colour tones. I've used a variegated because then it suits all my 3 different colours of pink that I was using. So it doesn't clash or interfere, and you don't see the white coming up, which sometimes you can. That's the rules. That's just how it is. But you know what? Just have a play first. If you're using your regular threads with your regular foot, with a regular straight stitch, you don't have to worry about any of that. So the law of the rule of thumb, the law, if you like, in my world is follow top stitch, if you like, the fabric that's on the top. So if you've got a piece of fabric that's sitting underneath, don't try to follow that. Stop at the different seams where it finishes, where it goes underneath that second part of the applique. So you're stitching the whole piece if it's sitting on top. If not, you're stopping and starting. And what we'll do is I'll do some and then you can see. So we're going to, the machine is on, although the light's not on. I've got an option of switching the light off. It's a yellow, it's a horrible light because it's an old-fashioned machine, so I keep the light off. So we'll see how we get on. Let me just get my threads out of the way. Press a foot down. I start with the needle in. I've got a metallic needle in there. I find it easier to thread. No other reason. And 3 dogs down, we're all good to go. So just start. You could, if you wanted to, do just slight little stitch on the spot just to lock your threads, but it's not necessary with this, really not. So just take your time. You're moving the fabric fairly slowly-ish. The faster you go with a slow speed like this will mean that you're going to get a sort of a longer stitch. If you pull your fabric or push your fabric away from you speedily and your machine's going slowly, you're going to get a longer stitch. So I wouldn't worry too much. All I want you to do is stitch it. So don't worry about your stitch length. If you're stitching on the spot for quite a way, you know what, when the whole thing is done, you're not going to see it. Now, ideally, you're going to keep your work exactly how it is when you start off, and you're going to go north, south, east, west. If you want to turn your work, turn it. But we'll see how we get on. So see how you go with going sideways. You might get to a point, like now, where you might want to move your fabric. Move your fabric, okay? Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt your sewing, but I just needed to tell you about my Gold Club. If you go to my website, lizzycurtis.com, you will see a page that says Sign Up Gold, and that's where you can first of all try the 14-day free trial period, or you can just sign up straight away and cut to the quick. You get 2 full concise patterns every month with 2 full videos. You also get a mid-month madness pattern that our Catherine makes for us, plus a video to accompany that as well. You also get all the Making It Monday projects for that current month as well for your membership. We have TV celebrity guests every month talking to us about their sewing journeys or just what they get up to in their crafting lives. And it's people that you know that are on your TV screens. We also do personal challenges every month as well. For 2022, we're doing a 12-month journal page, all stitching. And then we're raising money for children in need also with a bear project every month. Not a Pudsey bear, a different sort of bear. So if you join the Gold Club, you really won't regret it. You do need to join the Facebook page to get full advantage of being a Gold member. Listen, I have just finished a Facebook Live with my lovely ladies in the group on Facebook, and we have just made this fabulous scrappy patchy scarf. And those are the sort of things that we do just on an ad hoc basis. It's a great place to be. Come on, sign up and join us. So with this back piece here, I'm just going to go up to where the second new fabric meets, and I'm just going to stop. So I'm stopping where that fabric is, and I'll show you on the overhead, and then I'm coming back. keep your speed up, you know, keep it consistent. Please don't use your stop-start. It absolutely does not work with free motion. It really doesn't. Put your foot control in. Now, I have worked with people that have never used their foot control. So it's been interesting to sort of get them to put their foot control on. I can't imagine life without my foot control, but obviously it's how you've learned to use your machine, isn't it? If you found using your stop-start perfect for you, then why would you plug your foot control in? Okay, so we've done 2 lines of stitching. I'm going to do a third. Now, if you go a bit wriggly, I quite like that because it gives it a sketchy look. And actually, in some respects, that's kind of what you're supposed to do. But I want you to, some people they would feel very uncomfortable about that because they like things to be absolutely perfect, and I get that. So it's one of those things, again, that is personal to you. And I don't want you to feel that there's a right or a wrong to doing this. So do stop, adjust. You can see I'm adjusting everything, and then I'm just going up to that halfway point again. Okay, now I'm going to stop there because normally now what I do is hop across my fabric, but I want you to have a quick look at what I've done. If I can find my scissors. So lift your foot up, release the tension on the thread. Let's just cut our threads like that. Just make sure you don't cut them too short. There we go. And if I put this on the overhead, I've got a bit of a shadow going on there because it's gone down onto my table. I want you to have a quick look. Perhaps we can zoom in a bit on that. Let's just move it a bit. So you can see that this piece of fabric here is sitting on top of that piece of fabric. So I've stopped here and I've stopped here. So all I've done is gone around here 3 times. Okay? But normally what I do now is I would hop over to this piece of fabric and do that. I'm doing one piece at a time, but I'm okay to hop from one to another. I'm comfortable with doing that. So let's just do a little bit more. So this time I'm speeding up a little bit, moving my fabric at a decent sort of pace. I'm not pushing it too much. I'm in control, pretty much. I mean, a sudden movement often happens, you know, you don't mean to, it catches on something, you get a sudden movement. Just treat that as part of the design. I mean, it could be something that really bothers you, in which case, I'm just going to cut my thread, in which case, just take your time, go slowly. Okay, so I'll continue going around this, and when I've got to have done certain pieces, I'll come back to you so you can see how I've got on. So I have done a fair bit of stitching, not all of it, but I've gone around the head and around the main part of the body, just the ears and the eyes and the nose to do. But I want you to have a quick look. If we can go on the overhead and get quite close in as we can, is that you'll be able to see that where this fabric has overlapped, so this is an overlap piece just here, that's what I've stitched around here. So it means that all the pieces that are underneath, like for instance that one, I've stopped stitching there and I've just done that little section there. Same with that. This is sitting on top, so I've gone all the way around it, but I haven't gone there because the ears go on top. So you will have to sort of work out what's on top, what's underneath, and where you stop and where you start. Okay, so I've done all of that, and this is just got to be done. So what I'll do is I'll put the rest of the cushion together for you, so at least you'll be able to see how that works. So once we've got that quilted and we're stitched and all beautiful, don't forget to do more quilting if you want to. We're just going to cut around our square, our cushion front, taking away the excess wadding. It's always good to have your wadding just slightly bigger in case your project moves, in case when you're quilting it sort of snuffles up the fabric a little bit, which it can do with quilting. You want to have plenty of wadding or batting underneath it to support it. So we're just cutting away that excess. Now you can obviously use your rotary cutter and your rulers and your cutting mat and all those tools, but just to save me getting all that in position for you, I'll just use my big scissors, my shears, and just trim all the way around. So I'm not cutting any of the fabric away, just the wadding and the batting, the wadding or the batting. Okay, so now we have the front of our cushion done. Doesn't it look absolutely glorious? It's so pretty. So think about the fabrics that you're going to use. So for the next part, what we've got are two back pieces. So if I hold one up, so there is one of my halves for the backing, and what I really want to do is to add a placket. Now to get this so it looks super neat, what you need to do is stitch from the back and then fold it round to the front. So with the right side of your fabric placed on your wrong side of your piece here, you're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So it's the right side of your placket to the wrong side of your fabric. And that way we're going to bring it round to the front. And you're going to do that on both pieces. So if I bring in the machine, so I've changed now to my regular thread. We can take our embroidery thread out of the way. I put my regular foot on. I've lifted my feed dogs. I've got my stitch length on 2.5. You can do it on 3. And we're just going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're joining the placket to the cushion, one of the cushion backs, and we'll do the same again. Now if you wanted to, you can do a back stitch just to secure it, but all of these seams will be included into the side seams going around the cushion. And when you put it together, it's the ideal time to get your overlocker or your serger out and go round the whole thing. It makes everything much tidier and stronger. So just come all the way down. So this doesn't have the advantage of an easy reverse stitch. It does have one, but it's not easy. And also it only has the thread cutter, not a thread trimmer. So, but then old technology is fine. So there's one done. So what I've done is, as you can see, I've stitched this on the wrong side. So this it's difficult to see with batik, but this is the wrong side of my fabric here, and this is the right side of my placket. Okay, in the pattern I'll try to make sure that I write it clearly enough, because what we're going to do then is we're going to fold over 1/4 inch on that placket and bring it round to the front. So let's do the other one. Let's just make sure we get it on the opposite way to this one. So let's just put it down on my bench. There we go, I'm happy with that. Just make sure both pieces of sky are up the top. So again, it's the wrong side of your cushion back, one of those halves, but it's the right side that's facing that piece. Because what I want to do is fold over 1/4 inch on my placket and bring it round to the front. And it's a lovely neat way of finishing your project. And you don't have to do this part, as I said. I just quite like to do something a little bit different, a little bit extra. Let's pop that all out of the way. And we'll get our iron switched on. Let's move that before it falls off. There we go. And using my little mat here, all I'm going to do is trim my threads first of all. Going to lay this on my mat. I'm just going to push that out. So wrong side of my backing, or wrong side of the back, one of the back halves, right side facing of my placket. I'll say, I'm sorry if I'm repeating, but it's just, you think right sides together, cool, that's fine, we can do that. Wrong sides together, yeah, no problem. But this is actually slightly different, only because it makes a neat front. The trouble with batik, of course, as I just said before, the back and front is almost identical. Sometimes you can see a difference, but sometimes it makes stitching really super easy. So we're just going to flip it over, and that's what it looks like. So we're just going to fold over 1/4 inch, thereabouts, I don't want you to measure it, on this other side, like that. We'll do the other one so it matches. So I'm probably a little bit more than 1/4 inch, but that's okay. And then all I'm going to do, because this is now my right side, all I'm going to do is flip that over and iron that down. And I'm just covering my stitches that I've just done. So I'm just covering it. So you can see it makes a really nice, neat, sort of just extra piece to your cushion back. Now what you could do is obviously pin this, or use clips. Let's see if we've got a couple of clips we can just show you. So you might want to clip that in place all the way along, or use your pins. Okay, so let's do the other one. So turn it so it's facing you. So this is the right side of your fabric, wrong side of your placket. You're going to fold in 1/4 inch all the way along, and then you're going to fold it again. And when you fold it, you're going to bring that folded edge just covering the stitches that you've just made. There. And the great thing about batik is it's still got like a bit of a sizing in it, like a sort of, it's almost like a starch. It's when it goes through the manufacturing process, I'm sure it gets washed in a sizing, and actually it's lovely for pressing. So there we are. So that's what our placket looks like, and obviously that's going to be a really nice, neat finish to the back of your cushion. So we're just going to top stitch along there to make it super duper neat. So we'll just bring in the machine again. There we go. And we're just going to top stitch. Now you might want to put this on a stitch length of 3. So get as near as you can to the edge, the folded edge that you've just created. One, might as well do the other. Let's take the clips out, we don't need them really. You may, nothing wrong with that. So I'm just chain piecing these together. And it would be lovely to have a matching pair on my sofa. It would be really lovely. Now of course you could use matching thread or contrasting thread, you could use a metallic thread, you could make this really pretty. Okay, so now we've got 2 backs. There we go. And they'll sit on top of each other, they'll overlap beautifully. Now really all I want you to do is right side of your hair facing you, as you can see it there. Take one of your pieces, put it right side down, and just line it up. So all of this is lined up here. Make sure, in this case, I've got my sky in the right place. Just line this up here. Might want to trim it if it doesn't fit. I always stitch on the front piece because I know that's perfect. And then right sides down again. Let's just trim our ends there. And overlap them. So if I bring that down, you'll be able to see we're overlapping by quite a bit. So if you did decide not to put the placket on, you've still got a lot of fabric that you can use to your advantage to make a nice overlap. I always think a good 4 inches overlap is perfect. It means that when you pop the cushion in, the cushion pad, then it's not going to split the back open. I don't like that look. So then all you're going to do is you're going to pin this together. Now actually I'm going to use clips because I'm going to stitch from the front. So I'll just bring a few clips in. Now I know, like I said just a moment ago, I know my front is absolutely perfect. And what you want to do is to make sure that when you stitch here, where the overlap is, I want you to go back, so you're stitching forward, come back, and just reinforce these pieces here. If you're doing this on your overlock or your serger, then you won't need to. It gives it super strength. But if you're using your regular machine, I want you to go back and forward a couple of inches on these parts here. Okay, so do this, because you're putting quite a force on it when you're putting your cushion pad in. And I don't want you to split your stitches. That would be such a shame. Also, put a clip where your overlap is, the edges of your overlap, and that keeps it absolutely in place. And the same with this one. I'm going to move that along, and it keeps everything flat. So that's our backing done. So it's right sides together with your outer. So that's what the back looks like, and that's what it looks like from where the plackets are. So literally we're just going to go all the way around. Now you can zigzag that if you want to. There's no reason why you can't finish it off nice and neatly inside with a zigzag. So I'm going to stitch, as I said, from the front. Got a few loose threads I could do with trimming. I'm doing a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. Going to just lengthen my stitch a little bit there. So go around 1/4 inch seam allowance, do a zigzag if you want to, just to neaten it. I would say if it's a gift, or if you're going to sell it, definitely. If it's for you, maybe just leaving it as it is fine. So needle down, pivot, foot up, or needle down, foot up, pivot, turn around that corner. Now we're coming to the part where the flaps are, where they're overlapping each other. So just make sure, because they'll want to wriggle, that they're all still sitting flat. Just keep checking your fabrics, make sure all the layers are sitting nicely. So what I need to do at some point is to finish this off, so I'll probably have to unpick it, but for speed of demonstration this is much easier and quicker for you. You don't want to see me stitching all of that. Oop, foot down. I'm so used to an automatic foot down, you see. We get spoiled sometimes with our super machines, don't we? But like I say, this little lady is a good 30 years old. She was owned by the NHS, and scratched in her back here it says NHS 7 of 8. So I don't know where she came from, I don't know her history. I bought her second hand, And I bought her just for applique work because she's just such a doll. So we've gone all the way round. Here we go. And of course, because we've got this envelope back, it's easy for turning. If you want to trim your corners, but you are making those corners quite weak by doing that. So I would suggest you do a zigzag, even if it's just in the corners, and then perhaps trim. I'm not going to trim mine. I don't think it's necessary, but you might want to. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, just how I am. I quite like the corners being a little bit more rounded, perhaps. And also, of course, get a pokey tool in there and do your best to push them out. There's also another way. There's a way of folding your fabric, your seams, before you turn through to make sure they are sitting flat on top of each other. One day I'll show you that. But this is such a lovely project. I'd love it if you made one. And of course, although we've called it the March Hare, I think you get hares all year round. Okay, so it's gorgeous. So there is our cushion made. That's what it looks like on the back. I don't have a cushion pad handy, but if I bring in the one that we made before, there we are. We've got almost identical twins. And that is our March Hare. I just think it's got real potential for using your offcuts of pinks, blues, whatever colours you decide of, the flowery fabrics. I think they'll look amazing. Anyway, that is our March Hare for 2022. I think she's absolutely gorgeous, and I hope you make loads.